and welcome back to Austin Plays Gaming, where today we've got another infographic type video and I'm very excited to talk about this. It has been a year since Marvel Rivals has officially released, and recently I've taken a liking to reading the gallery cards in Marvel Rivals, and recently it has made me it's made me understand that not a lot of people understand the lore unless you're like really into this game, and they just think Marvel Rivals is just a hero shooter, but it has got a story, and it is a very good story with that comes alongside it. So hop in with me and see what this story is all about. The war against time, some may say. Season 0 is where it all starts off. The rise of Season 0 was called Doom's Rise, which was the inciting incident of the whole story of Marvel Rivals. On one hand, it is basically just the extreme burst of terms out of plot lines. However, on the other hand, its significance can't really be overestimated. It is just here as it falls apart. At this point, it's structured. The story just gets a tiny bit more broken as you go down. Dr. Doom is the king of state of Latveria and one of the most accomplished men in the multiverse who discovers chronovium. Now, chronovium is a substance that can anchor, bend, and weaponize time. The time is not something Doom respects, but he also perceives it as an object to conquer. By being irresponsible and conducting experiments, very much like Dr. Doom's personality traits, breaks the whole time stream, causing an event that is often referred to as the time stream entanglement. Complete realities start intersecting, and the heroes and villains are torn out of their home streams and dumped into different chronoverses. That's how you have the different maps. And these all are very unstable, so that the casualties is stitched together using the loose strands. This season, the very first season, Season 0, defines the main fact of Marvel Rivals. Time is no longer a stable aspect, and this is why every battle is taking place. And although Doom momentarily is pushed out of the limelight following this disaster, his shadow continues to remain throughout the narrative. So in any sort of event or sort of big thing like a new map, a new character, and why they are actually in the game, often enough, it is because Doom is behind the scenes, basically being the puppet master. And I think you have such a good character to be the puppet master as well. Now, on to Season 1, the official launch season called Eternal Night Falls. Now, this is a example of one of the chronoverses that was created because of this time stream entanglement. The story really starts at Season 1 and understand what happened with the time stream entanglement, because it first causes the devastation of the city of New York. However, this nighttime is basically just not Earth. It's more like a dimension almost, but the reason is because of the character name known as Dracula, the Lord of Vampires. However, Dracula is not a one-man show. He was approached by Dr. Doom, who offers him a piece of chronovium, as I said, and because of this, Dracula turns New York into all night. So it's permanent darkness, giving Doom the disguise he seeks to lead a much greater score of the Darkhold, because obviously a lot of this of where we are now in Season 6 is obviously where we are, the current season. There's a lot to do with the Darkhold, and I know not a lot of people know that, but that's why I think this is so fascinating. Season 1 was released a year ago, and it still comes back to it. That's why I think the lore is phenomenal. The Darkhold is not just a magic book. It is basically an alive magical vessel for forbidden magic, and it can change reality itself. Doom is under the impression that he will be able to stabilize it, or maybe even enslave broken time streams with it. At the same time, Doctor Strange is stuck as the astral plane, where he is rushing to prevent the invasion of the vampires, which in turn brings him to Khonshu, the Egyptian moon god, that tests Strange to acquire a formula, the unique spell that can eliminate vampires entirely. Strange achieves success at a price though. The Darkhold is destroyed with its pages broken between time and space. And there's two significant effects of this. Dracula becomes deprived of his absolute control over the night, and the plans of Doom are basically just postponed and not prevented. With this season, we had the introduction of the Fantastic Four, Moon Knight, Squirrel, Cloak and Dagger, all of which were protecting New York, and there are some tensions among heroes themselves, such as Reed Richards and Tony Stark collide on part of responsibility as Spider-Man disappears into a time wormhole, which foreshadows his future consequences. And I also think this is perfect because season 1 ends on such a high note. It's a bad ending, but a good beginning for season 2. Season 2 at the Hellfire Gala, I think really changes the vibe, and it changes sides to the mutants. Another sort of, it's kind of merged chronoverses, but they don't realize that it's merged. Krakoa is the homeland of living mutants, but is brutally torn apart and thrown back to the year of 2099. The island is slowly rotting dead as a result of their chronal instability, oozing through the time stream. In order to keep unity and find allies, Emma Frost organizes the Hellfire Gala, which is a statement that mutants will not hide even when the whole reality falls down. Magneto is very opposed to this event. In his opinion, the gala, it basically just exposes mutants, and this exposes Krakoa as a secret place. And he is right. The revelation is then cut short by an unwanted guest known as Ultron. Ultron believes that time is imperfect, and he thinks that he can solve everything, and he wants to reconstruct life using unconditional machine logic. He invades Krakoa, corrupts its systems, and gives birth to Extron, a creature of monstrous mutant energy and artificial intelligence. I'll be honest, for a while I thought it was Vision. It looks a lot like Vision, but anyway. But Doctor Doom reinvents himself and presents a dangerous bargain. He states that he is able to remove the chronal poison that kills Krakoa and its plants. However, he needs the aid of the heroes in order to make Extron lose. Now, I know they think Extron was a good character because obviously he had Iron Man helping him. He wasn't. He was actually a villain. So the mutants and Doctor Doom agreed temporarily without knowing what he had done. However, Ultron turns out to be a traitor, and he's shown that Doom is not the wisest kid in the room anymore. The second season concludes with Krakoa being rescued. However, a big point of this season was made. Threats are coming in a lot more, and they're not just coming to Earth. Season 3. Probably my least favorite season, I will be honest. I like the story. It just didn't hit as hard, and I missed a lot of it. I understand that might be my issue. However, I just was not a fan. But in terms of the story, maybe. Now, assuming that season 2 was to do with technology themes, you have to have a good circle. So they went with the cosmic horror theme, which I think is pretty okay, you know. Now, the time fractures are a wake-up call to something ancient, or someone ancient, known as Null, the god of symbiotes. Before light in the stars and hope was being born, Null is a contagious, like disease, which devours worlds and bends creatures to his purpose. So he calls on a herald-type figure known as Hela, the goddess of death, and having corrupted and given her power, she turns into the Queen of Black, and herds the symbiote legions to travel through the cosmos. The universe retaliates by releasing an anti-energy known as Phoenix. Jean Grey is born again, and she is a representation of rebirth. So Jean Grey was actually dead, but she was rebirthed by the Phoenix Force. However, the destruction and renewal of Phoenix is rebirth. Blade enters the battle, and his struggle against the darkness becomes cosmic. Now, he was a big character during Season 1 and 2. Season 2, he was being healed by the Wakandans. Season 1, he fought Dracula and lost. But here he is. A question that characterizes this season was mainly, can creation live in an age with destruction and intelligence? But the response was very ambiguous and frightening. Now, I think the story of Hela, and Null was so weak. There was barely anyone on their team. However, they had Blade, they had Magic, they had all characters in the Phoenix Force, but then they had very limited symbiotes. So this just didn't hit as hard for me. But what can you do, really? It had some sick mini passes though. I got a very rare Venom skin, which I'm very happy to that I got. However, I really wish I got the Cloak and Dagger one now. Season 4. Now, the story is very wishy-washy with this one, but don't worry, that's what I'm here for. And if you're wondering why certain characters appeared in this season, let me tell you. Season 4 brings the story back to the mystic type stuff, and a discipline, I think, is a very good theme of this. There is a great talk of an ancient dragon known as Shao Lao, the heart of which burns through the chronicle chi and power that can fix and rewrite history. Now, obviously, Doom wants to be in control of this again. Now, in order to reach the heart of the dragon, a tournament is set up, a trial that is supposed to select warriors deserving such power. I'm not gonna lie to you, this is starting to sound a lot more like Mortal Kombat as I read this. It is a mere physical competition. It is spiritual. But angels and demons appear as signs of judgment and temptation. both of which were the key aggressors in this tournament. Warriors are not just challenged with physical power, but willpower as well. Iron Fist was in the middle of this battle as one who tries to balance the forces between the purpose and the power. Now, I think this season supports the major themes of Marvel Rivals as a game. Like, power, that is one, but it's shattered across 6 players, I guess. And it obviously depends on who comes first. Now, Daredevil was obviously the judgment side, and the temptation and all of that, all the bad aspects were because of Daredevil and what he had been possessed by. And Angela was obviously from heaven, so you had the contrast between heaven and hell. Obviously, a very biblical aspect of it. It's very similar to the good, the bad, and the ugly. However, the ugly is basically just a balance, so it's split into 3. Season 5, I think, was probably the most anticipated season of all, with the most popular characters appearing in this season. Season 5 changed the scale to a more very personal one. The time stream entanglement destroyed the marriage between Gambit and Rogue, unfortunately, as rings as an expression of commitment were lost in reality. However, they were not going to allow them to be robbed of their future together, and so they traveled to the Grand Garden, a fantasy world led by the Grandmaster, and was created due to the cosmic experimentation. It is a season of choice, I think, of trust and vulnerability, and I think that's definitely good for love, I think. Now, Season 5 and Season 6 are so interconnected, it's insane. Now, the Collector's Gallery purposes the objectives that challenge their connection. So, the Collector is basically the one putting the strain on their love and their marriage, or soon-to-be marriage. And all the challenges drive Rogue to face her powers, and the fear of being a cause of injury and to all of her loved ones is, I think, a big aspect of Rogue's character type, and to integrate it into a story like this is amazing work. And in the universe, love is not just a safety, it is a risk. But I think that's why Gambit and Rogue are perfect together, not just because of their story, but because of how they are through so much crap and hate through the destroyed marriage by complete accident because of the time stream entanglement. This is all that has happened. Now, every season is a different time stream entanglement, something that's gone wrong. That's the best way to put it. However, we are now a year into it, we are now heading into how things are starting to look together. Season 6, Night at the Museum. Now, Season 6 is where we currently are, and both Elsa Bloodstone and Deadpool are the headliners for the season. The powers of Rogue get out of the control, and they are empty of the Grand Garden, and they make an escape path. But another time is when Krakoa and Gambit get lost in the Collector's Museum vault of the most dangerous relics in the universe, and the anchors that have broken down across the universes and the multiverse. The Collector foresaw this, and he dispatches Deadpool and Elsa Bloodstone, both of which are his, assassins, basically. As Deadpool himself, he breaks open all of the containment units, all of the museum, which follows basically pure chaos, which definitely sounds like Deadpool, and artifacts tend to escape. But creatures rampage, realities bend, and such a season is represented of the present day of Marvel Rivals, and it is such a good season, and the story, I think these last 2 seasons have been immensely perfecto. That is it. But Marvel Rivals has been a story of ambition, consequence, and survival in 6 seasons. Doctor Doom might be one of who initiated the war against time, but it is no longer in his control. The multiverse is now awake and it is aware, and what it follows, we just don't know. But without further ado, folks, that is the end of today's video. I do hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope you found this very educational. If you're wondering what goes on in Marvel Rivals, here you go. But without further ado, I hope you have an amazing day as always, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye! Yeah!